Welcome to today's episode of PC 24 RETV. Today we are going to talk about residential tenancies. And residential tenancies, as I see, are kind of giving a lot of trouble these days. So we are going to talk a bit about residential tenancies. So residential tenancies are a big bone of contention these days. I noticed some students being kicked out of the basement by the landlords, which appears to be an illegal act of evicting someone from the basement. And they are clearly admitting that they will re-rent the basement, they will return their rent 2 to 4 days after they receive from the next tenant. This behavior is unacceptable. But why is this happening in the first place? That is something that we must understand. So, residential tenancies are governed strictly by an act called Residential Tenancies Act. And this is really critical that you understand how the law works. Most of the international students do not understand that. So I'm going to write something here. So international students must understand how and what of Residential Tenancy Act in order to weed out the unlawful treatment of their peaceful enjoyment. So today I will be brief about that. So if you go to ontario.ca website, I'm going to share that information with you right here. So it is very critical that you go to Residential Tenancies Act, and you can also send me a message about that, and I would be happy to furnish as much detail as I can your way. So feel free to let me know what you really want. So the Residential Tenancy Act, oops, all you need to do is Google search with Ontario Act. That way it will be very easy for you to find out what I intend to tell you. So it is all available and you should know about that. So today we will talk a bit about what this Tenancies Act actually means. There are rules governing how much rent can be increased. So every Ontario lease should have Ontario Standard lease sign up. If you do not have the Ontario lease sign up, and if you signed it but have not received a copy, then you can actually stop paying the rent until and unless the landlord has given you the copy of this agreement. So I guess there is a number of days when it has to be done. And if you look at the lease agreement, the standard lease agreement, it clearly tells you when it has to be given to you. So Ontario Standard Lease is the only document that you should basically look for, Ontario Standard Lease. And this will exactly tell you that if the landlord does not give you the signed lease agreement within X number of days, the tenant can legally hold the rent. Sorry, I have a little thing going on here. So basically, the Ontario Standard Lease is a very exhaustive document that was created just to facilitate the people who are willing to rent and who are willing to rent out. Those two things different. So Ontario Standard Lease is available right on the website. You can just go to the Ontario Standard Lease and look at that. So what does this entail? So there is a guide to residential leases and how it operates. Every standard lease agreement has couple options and segments to that. The first most segment is there are three sections to it. Section of the standard lease are parties to the agreement. Who is the landlord? Who is the tenant? And then information about the rental unit. That is the second thing. And the third is contact information. And then it comes down to term of tenancy agreement. And finally, not finally, then the rent and services and utilities, rent discounts, rent deposits, key deposits, smoking, tenant insurance, changes to the unit, maintenance and repairs. So all those things are covered under this Ontario Standard Lease Agreement. The first and foremost, you should understand your obligations. So I would suggest you can download the standard link lease by visiting the website of ontario.ca or Ministry of Municipal Ministry of Municipal Affairs. You can just visit there. So the standard lease agreement, and I'm going to just download this document and share the information with you. So it basically identifies, this was actually any lease agreement that was entered on or after March 1, 2021 has to have this lease agreement signed. But it does not apply to care homes, sites in mobile homes, and land lease communities, most social housing, it doesn't apply there. Certain other special tenancies or cooperative housing, it does not apply. So the information is provided in the part A on the document itself. This document is a very long document and you must get all of it. There are 14 pages, and of these 14 pages, the first 7 are the forms and all others are appendix, that is general information to this. So as per part A of where it is applicable or not, so this form cannot be used for care homes, sites in mobile home parks or land lease communities, social and supportive housing that is exempt from rent increase guidelines, members unit in cooperative housing, and any other accommodation that is exempt from the act. So this is where it does not apply, right? So this is mentioned in the appendix. So please, if you are renting a basement or a room or whatever, make sure you have this. If you are a group of people and only one of you is responsible for collecting rent from each and everyone, make sure your names are available in the lease on an additional document, which you can say annexure to the lease. If that changes quite often, make sure you keep changing that often. Sometimes landlord may say, okay, Mr. X will be in charge. Mr. X has to pay us $3,000 a month and he can lease to maximum of 5 people because there are occupancy laws in Canada. So occupancy laws dictate how many people can live in a particular square footage of the house. So you have to be very careful. Nobody can lease to more people than legally permitted. If there is a small house, 700 square feet, you cannot house 15 people in there. It may have restrictions. So go to every municipality's website and just find out occupancy standards in Mississauga, in Kitchener, in Brampton, in this and that, and everything. So, under the Ontario Human Rights Code, everyone has the right to equal treatment in housing without any discrimination or harassment. So, this lease has to be signed by every person which is a party to it, and the lease has to be given to the parties. Every party should have it. I'm sorry, I'm slightly doing two things at a time. Kind of forgive me if you see me distracted because I have some important meeting and I'm just silently joining that. Let me do this thing. Let me just quickly run my ads and change the volume of that particular thing that is going on there. So give me a second so I can join with you. It's unfortunate that there is overlap today. Are you thinking of selling your home? You are covered. From my experience of 14 plus years in the real estate industry, this is what I have come to know. There are three major concerns that any home seller would want their realtor to answer. Number one, how much is their home worth? Number two, how long will it take to sell their house? And number three, what will the agent do to make it sell? I have answers to all these questions. To schedule your one-on-one appointment, call me at 647-424-0358. Once again, Paul Chima, broker with Remax Prime Properties. My phone number to call is 647-424-0358. Call me now and get moving.
From a vast experience in immigration industry, this is what I've figured out. Clients want to know if their application is submitted in a timely fashion, what a representative can do to serve best interest of their client. Clients are informed on a regular basis about the progress of their application. We deliver what we promise. My phone number is 647-465-8894 or reach me out at 639-998-1992.
Are you thinking of a career change or adding another one to your portfolio? Well, you are thinking right. Call Sarabjit Luddar at 416-879-3039 from Beyond Care Insurance Solutions. She also deals in life, long-term, travel, critical illness, disability insurance. Give her a call today at 416-879-3039. This is what we can tell you. She will always give you the right advice and help you find out if being an insurance advisor is your piece of cake. Are you looking for a reliable legal office that can handle your closing in the most effective manner? If yes, please get in touch with Rakesh Joshi at 416-213-8600. Joshi Law Office provides all the legal advices about real estate law, business law, immigration laws, notarization and affidavits, wills and trust. Give them a call today, 416-213-8600. ਅਵੰਚਿਆ ਬੜਾ ਖੁਸ਼ ਤੁਰਿਆ ਹੋਣਾ ਕਿ ਲਾਟਰੀ ਲੂਟਰੀ ਲੱਗ ਗਈ ਤੇਰੀ। ਕਾਸ਼ ਇਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਲਾਟਰੀ ਲੱਗਦੀ। ਵੈਸੇ ਗੱਲ ਤੇ ਲਾਟਰੀ ਵਰਗੀ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਲਾਈਫ ਦਾ ਬੀਮਾ ਕਰਵਾ ਕੇ ਆਇਆ, ਤੇ ਜੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਮਗਰੋਂ ਕੋਈ $1 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਊਗਾ। ਉਹ ਅੱਛਾ, ਇਹ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ? ਉਹ ਜੇ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕਮਲਜੀਤ ਬੋਲਾ ਨੂੰ ਸੰਪਰਕ ਕਰ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਫੋਨ ਨੰਬਰ 647 772 1481। ਹੁਣੇ ਹੀ ਕਰ ਲੈ ਫੋਨ, ਬੈਠੇ ਨੇ, ਨਹੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਛੱਡ ਦੇਈਂ। ਉਹ ਬੱਲੇ ਉਹ ਤੇਰੇ। PC24 ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ 5 ਚੈਨਲਾਂ ਤੇ ਬੜੇ ਸ਼ੌਕ ਨਾਲ ਦੇਖੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ। ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਪ੍ਰਮੋਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ 647 333 2273 ਤੇ ਕਾਲ ਕਰੋ। ਕੁਝ ਸਮੇਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇਹ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਮੁਫਤ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਜਾ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ। 6473332227। Well, thank you very much for waiting, and I came back. There are some little glitches on my site. I do not know why it is. Something is not properly running, but here is the thing, because this is what happens when you try to multitask. So what I was talking about in the residential tenancy lease that we were discussing, so let me tell you what it basically entails. So technically there is a lease agreement. If you are a bunch of people living together, remember you have to follow the occupancy standard. Landlord cannot lease the property to more than what is allowed under the laws of a particular municipality. If they do, then that means something is dangerously overlooked and can cause fire hazard. So there are risks associated with more people than permitted. So there are laws, guys, and you must respect those laws. So there is a form, and I would like to probably ask you to go on residential tenancy agreement or type in standard form of lease, and you will see what I want to tell you, because that document is very critical for your knowledge and for the sake of this discussion. So now you have to fill that in. If you do not sign that in and you do not get a copy, you can legally hold the rent, and it will tell you that you do not have to pay rent more than 1 month, which is more than one last month of rent. If someone asks you to pay more rent than you should, you can always file a complaint against the person or entity, whatever it is, and get this fixed. But there is an exception to the rent control guidelines. We'll come down to that when times comes. So right now, so the term of tenancy is clearly mentioned, and nobody can break that tenancy. So tenancy, the tenant cannot be made to pay rent by the post dated checks. Yes, post dated checks are not permitted any time, but tenant can choose to pay. There's no harm doing that. A tenant can choose to pay, but landlord cannot accept it. The tenant, basically, if you're getting into a partial rent, everything should be documented, each and everything. Then there is a portion on the lease agreement where it clearly mentions standards, services, and utilities, who pays what. Get that documented, so that unfortunate situation where this landlady is threatening some students of uttering threats to her children and then trying to call police on them, this is a dangerous situation to be in. So do not pay rent by cash. Never and never pay rent by cash, because if you do so, this is going to be very troublesome. So if there are discounts, if you get a discount, make sure it is mentioned. And the rent, the key deposit is only and only for the condominiums where The management charges a fee if you lose a fob, if you lose a key, then because all those are under control of the management. But in freehold homes, you do not have to pay any uh, key deposit because that is not permitted. But sometimes people still end up paying deposit because of lack of knowledge. So you guys Google up everything from hotel to movie theater. Why not you Google up Ontario Residential Act? It is Residential Tenancy Act. This is a very important. And of course, you cannot have more people than were mentioned on the lease. The lease could have a clause where tenants are required to buy a liability insurance. Why you have to buy liability insurance is something that we'll talk some other time. But right now, we'll just stick to this particular information that we're talking. And I will have a very short session today because I have to leave for some important meeting, and I probably might continue on this some other time at some other broadcast. So you cannot do any change, you cannot do anything, and then the document has to be given to the tenant 100%, right? So if the landlord changes, a new landlord has the same rights and obligations as the previous landlord. A new landlord must follow all the terms of this agreement unless the tenant and the new landlord agree to other terms. So if you have signed a lease with a tenant, with a landlord, and the landlord sells the property, and the new landlord is not moving in, but they just bought it as an investment property, they cannot evict you. If they kick you out saying they need this property for their own use and they move you out, but after you have moved out, they just rent it out. You have 365 days to file a claim in the landlord and tenant board, which is a tribunal that addresses all these things. So tenancy is very seriously taken in Canada. So I know you just came to Canada from your countries and you did not know how it works. You were desperate to find a place and you just moved in. That's okay. So a new landlord, like I said, has to respect the tenancy. So when you live the whole term, there is a clause that permits you to renew your lease. But you may have to give a notice when the notice is given. If your lease expires, what happens? There are a couple of things that you must understand. So if the landlord and tenant agree that the tenancy will last for a specific period of time, this is called fixed term tenancy. Let's say 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, or 6 months, whatever it is. Both the start and ending dates are mentioned on the lease agreement. So the end of an agreement does not mean that you have to move out or sign a renewal or new lease agreement in order to stay. You do not have to sign any new lease after the term is over. You have been living there already, so everything is okay. You just stay there, and that's all about it. You do not have to leave or evict, right? It often happens that the some landlords think they are cleverer than everyone else, so they will send you a lease quietly. So you are not a new tenant there. You are already living there, so you stay there for as long as you can want, or as long as the landlord has to lease the property. If the landlord or his family wants to move in, then that doesn't mean anything. Anyone can end the tenancy by giving appropriate notice. And duration of the notice is always available online if you forget it after this broadcast. As a monthly tenant, if the agreement was for a fixed term or a monthly tenancy, that is a monthly tenancy. As a weekly, if you are a weekly tenant, then you pay rent weekly, but your tenancy will be for a weekly tenancy. As a daily tenant, your tenancy will be daily tenant. Like I move in today, that's 1 day of lease. The landlord and tenant can also agree to renew the agreement for another fixed term or enter into a new agreement. In any case, changes to the rent must follow the rules of the act. So there is a rent control guidelines. If you sign a new lease, you don't have to sign a new lease, by the way, but if you are made to sign, make sure the new rent is in accordance with the rent control guidelines. You do not have to make any changes there. So when you have to end the tenancy, right, you must follow the rules of act. So how much notice is required? I was looking up on this video where it was being commented that, oh, you need to give 30 days notice, you need to give 60 days notice, you need to give 90 days notice. I saw so much confusion, and that's why I decided to do this broadcast to help you out. So if you are on a monthly or a fixed term tenancy, the notice is given 60 days in advance. And your 60 days do not start the day you give notice. Let us say this thing. Your tenancy runs from 15th to 15th every month. So every 15th you pay the rental check or you send money out on that day via online payment or credit card payment, whatever payment it is. And we are talking about only residential leases. So now if you give notice on 1st of that month, your notice has no effect unless 15th of that month. So your 60 days actually begin on 15th of that month. So 15th to 15th to 15th will be 60 days. So this is how days are counted. They are not counted from any day. If your monthly tenancy begins on 1st of every month, that you are asked to pay rent on 1st of every month, then your 60 days will start from 1st of every month. If you pay, if you give notice in the middle, it doesn't have any effect. So basically, you must understand that you may be given notice on, let's say, 3rd of a month, but that notice will be applicable from 1st of the next month because the notice was already delayed by 2 days. So make sure when you receive a notice, you read the dates, that and you tell the tenant, landlord, hey, I received it on 3rd and my 60 days begin on, let's say you are in October, September right now, and your tenancy starts on 15th, but landlord gives you notice to you today on 12th. Your actual day will begin on 15th. The first day of your 60 days will be the 15th. And if your tenancy runs from 1st to 1st and you are given notice on 3rd of this month, from 12th of September all the way to 1st of October, these days are not counted as part of your 60 days. It's very critical to understand this particular thing. So when does your 60 days or notice period begins? When you write your check, when the rent is payable, right? So now if you are on a monthly tenancy or a fixed term tenancy, you need to give 60 days notice. And if you are on a weekly or daily tenancy, you need to give at least 28 days notice, at least. So like 60 days notice could be 80 days notice too, because if it was given in a partial month, it doesn't count towards 60 days. So remember this is very, very critical. And 60 days are the norm for fixed term and monthly tenancy. For daily and monthly, daily and weekly, it is 28 days notice. So how can a landlord end the tenancy? Same. So if you do not, the notice period is the same, 60 days or 28 days. If you do not pay rent, the landlord can evict you. He can, they can serve you a notice, but if you pay the rent, that notice becomes null and void. And the second thing is when you cause extensive damage to the property, you will get a notice to leave, right? And these notices are pretty effective, pretty faster. If your rent is 15 days past due, you can be served a notice to evict. Tenant substantially interferes with the reasonable enjoyment of other tenants or the landlord. If you are living with other tenants and you cause a nuisance, like you put a loud volume on your TV or your stereo, or you bring friends to party and you're disturbing the peace of your landlord, you are going to be in a big trouble. So make sure you are careful about that. Sometimes the lease will have this kind of term. The landlord may also give you notice to end tenancy in certain situations that are not the tenant's fault. These all things are available on these 14 pages of Ontario Standard Lease Agreement. But you will only leave at the end of the term or the rental period, not before that. In these cases, the landlord must still give proper notice, like 60 days or 28 days, whatever is applicable. And sometime if they evict you before term, the landlords may have to give you some, compensation for that to the to return to the unit again. For example, landlord and purchaser need the unit for themselves, or an immediate family member or a caregiver need to occupy the unit, then you have to leave that. Or landlord needs to do extensive renovation to the unit that requires you to move out. So if you do not move out, the landlord must apply to the LTB, Landlord and Tenant Board, to evict the tenants. The Landlord and Tenant Board will hold a hearing and decide if the tenancy should end. Both the landlord and tenants can come to the hearing, or they can send their representative if you want. It is an offense for the landlord to evict a tenant without following the process. If convicted, the landlord could face a fine of up to 50,000 if individual, or 250,000 for a corporation, right? So 50,000 to $250,000 for a corporation. So I'm really sorry, I have so much conflict going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take up this topic once again, because it is very difficult to handle these two different sides of stream today. I tried. I do not want to miss my broadcast, but at the same time, this is an important meeting. I thought I will be in only listening mode, but they want me to participate in it. So we'll continue this chat tomorrow, and I'm sorry for this abrupt ending. You stay with me, and we'll come back with more information. And trust me, this is a very, very critical information that I'm going to share with you. If you need any more information, you can actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the link to this tenancy agreement on the TikTok. So you can always you can always click the link and check out yourself. So the document has been posted in the TikTok. Just follow that and you will see where what I mean. We'll come back to it some other time. So forgive me for today, and I will come back again tomorrow or some other time earlier tomorrow. So my apologies. Good luck.